I was trying to think of a cheeky way to start this video to grab your attention, and the only thing that I could come up with was, you got the skills to pay the bills. You got the skills to pay the bills. Today, we're going to be talking about the skills approach to leadership. My name is Dr. Bailey Benedict, and this presentation is based on Northouse's leadership textbook, specifically Chapter 3. We're going to be reviewing trait and behavioral leadership and introducing the 3 skills approach, then talking about the skills model of leadership. In early leadership theorizing, we're focusing a lot on the leader. We start with trait leadership. That's when we're focused on who leaders are. There, we look at their inborn traits and their characteristics, and the leadership view is that traits are largely innate and they're kind of fixed within us. The behavioral approach then says, okay, what do leaders do? And it focuses on the actions and the behaviors of leaders. And the perspective of the behavioral approach is that behaviors are modeled. So we've seen other leaders be successful, and we kind of model those leadership behaviors that we think will be beneficial for our group. The skills leadership model has a bit more of a growth mindset and is focused on what leaders can learn. There, we're interested in their knowledge and abilities, and the viewpoint is that these skills can be learned and developed over time. In 1955, Katz developed the 3 skills approach, which the general premise was that skills are what leaders can accomplish, and these skills are our ability to use one's knowledge and competencies to achieve a goal or objectives. Katz argues that leaders have 3 different skills. The first being technical, and those skills revolve around things. So we have knowledge about and proficiency in a job or activity, expertise, education, and experience with a certain craft, and a specialized ability to analyze and use tools and techniques. For instance, for an accountant, a technical skill is literally the ability to balance books and the knowledge of different tax laws and things like that. Human skills, those are related to people. These are our knowledge about and ability to work with people. We call them people skills, and it's based around an awareness of who we are, but also who others are, and what their needs and motivations and desires are. With human skills, we have the ability to cooperate, communicate, and build trust. An accountant with good people skills is able to work with their clients to help them feel comfortable throughout the tax process, even though it's overwhelming sometimes. Finally, our conceptual skills are related to ideas. Those are our knowledge and ability to work with ideas or concepts. How well can a leader work with abstractions, intangibles, and hypotheticals? Do they have the ability to think critically and strategize and make meaning? So these are kind of those higher level thinking, finding trends, putting the pieces together. An accountant with conceptual skills would be good at working with their clients to figure out what the best tax strategy for the next year would be. Leaders and managers across all levels need all of these 3 skills, but depending on your rank in the organization, you might need more or less of these different skills. And Katz argues that in supervisorial roles, we need a lot of technical skills. We need to be able to do the job and to work with the people who are doing the job alongside us and work with our clients. But those conceptual, bigger picture skills, that kind of long-term abstract thinking, those are not quite as necessary at the supervisorial level. Middle management, he argues, needs all 3 equally. And then top-level management, that technical skill isn't quite as important because they're not rolling up their sleeves and doing the work all the time, but those conceptual skills, that long-term thinking, is a lot more important. And I think something that's interesting to note here is that Katz emphasizes human skills being important across all 3 levels. 45 years later, Mumford and colleagues introduced the skills-based model of leadership. This model examines the relationship between a leader's capabilities, including their skills and knowledge, and their performance. And the skills-based model of Mumford and colleagues has 5 components: competencies, individual attributes, leadership outcomes, career experiences, and environmental influences. These are the first 3 components of the skills model, and we're going to focus on competencies first because the competencies are those skills in the skills-based approach. The 3 key competencies for Mumford and colleagues are problem-solving skills, social judgment skills, and knowledge. One of the overarching goals of this model is to explain why some leaders are good problem solvers and others are not. not. Honing in on those problem-solving skills is important. Those are our creative ability to solve new, unusual, ill-defined, and organizational problems. Involved in problem solving are defining, researching, and forming understandings of the problem, generating and planning solutions, and considering contextual factors, leadership capabilities, and organizational goals when making decisions. The second competency in this model is social judgment skills. These are our capacity to understand people and social systems and work with others. In social judgment skills, there are 4 categories of skills. Perspective taking is the first, and that's understanding others' attitudes and goals. We want to know their viewpoints, be able to use empathy to solve problems. Social perceptiveness, then, is having insight into how other people function and having this keen sense of how employees are going to respond to a proposed change. Behavioral flexibility is our ability to be flexible and change our behavior. Knowing that pulse of the employees and the people that we're working with, and then being able to be adaptable to what their needs are and the needs of the situation are, that's that behavioral flexibility. And social performance, that's our ability to perform people skills, communicate, resolve conflict, and coach others. It's important to be able to understand others' perspectives and then adapt our performance to what their needs are. And the final competency is knowledge. This is our accumulation of information and schema to organize that information. Schema are these kind of mental organizational structures that we have that when we get new information, we can make sense of it by kind of sorting it into these schemas and putting it with other like things, categories, summaries, diagrams, outlines, just things in our mind that help us with encountering new information. We can use these complex schema to learn, organize data, and problem solve, and then generally addressing complex issues and using past experiences to confront the future. We started in the middle with competencies, what leaders are able to learn and do, but working back from that, our individual attributes are what influence those skills and capabilities. Mumford and colleagues argue we have 2 different cognitive abilities that are under the attributes category. The first is our general cognitive ability. That's our intelligence and our cognitive ability linked to biology. You could think about this as a fixed mindset approach. So our ability to perceptually process information, have general reasoning, our creative and divergent thinking skills, our capacity for memory. This is kind of our fluid intelligence, and this is the intelligence that grows with us and expands through early adulthood and then usually declines with age. Our crystallized cognitive ability is acquired intelligence, and it's linked to our experience. So this is the store of knowledge that we acquire through doing things and learning from our mistakes, and we increase this capacity over our lifetime and thus increase our leadership capacity. Typically, our cognitive ability grows continuously and doesn't fall off in adulthood. It's generally our ability to comprehend complex information, learn new skills, learn new information, and be able to communicate with others in an oral and written fashion. The other 2 attributes that contribute to our capabilities are motivation. Motivation includes our willingness to tackle complex organizational problems, to express dominance or exert our influence, and then our commitment to the social good of the organization. Last, our personality are any of those characteristics that help us cope with organizational situations. In the skills model, our individual attributes, including our cognitive abilities, motivation, and personality, predict our competencies, and those 2 things influence then our leadership outcomes. And the 2 leadership outcomes that Mumford and colleagues were most interested in were effective problem solving and performance. With effective problem solving, they were interested in how logical, unique, and effective the solutions a leader generates were. The criteria include the originality of the solution and the quality of the expressed solutions to the problem. So basically, how well do they actually solve the problem? Performance, that's related to how well they perform the job of being a leader. These include completing assigned duties and are usually measured by standard criteria. Rounding out the skills model of leadership, we add career experiences that Mumford and colleagues argue influence our individual attributes and our competencies. Leaders don't just start with everything that we need. They grow and encounter mentoring, encounter challenges, training, hands-on problem-solving skills, and over time, as they move into higher roles, they're faced with more complicated problems that they have to work through. Their social judgment grows as they get burned or they succeed in their relationships, and they develop those conceptual skills. So this perspective is different than our trait perspective, that leaders are just born with certain traits, and instead the skill approach emphasizes that we can develop these leadership skills, and career experiences are one of the main contributors. The last part of the skills model is environmental influence. These are factors outside of the leader's control that still affect their performance. They can be internal to the organization, like outdated technology, limited resources, or the skill of the team. For example, a really highly competent team can make a leader more effective, while a team that's not really great at communicating can hold them back. The external influences in the environment could be things like economic shifts or political issues, even natural disasters. When encountering a hurricane, a wildfire, a tornado, leaders are faced with extreme problem solving, and that natural disaster can really influence their decision making and then the outcomes that they have as a leader. Here, the leadership model is emphasizing that internal and external forces are shaping who a leader becomes and how their skills develop. Basically, that leadership just doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are all these other factors at play too. The skills approach has several strengths, one being that it's leader-centered, so it is focused on developing the skills of the leader and not just what their traits are. That means that the model sees leadership as learnable, and that makes leadership accessible to anyone because skills can be taught and practiced over time. This model is also fairly comprehensive. It includes problem solving, social judgment, knowledge, factors that can influence a leader's success in problem solving. And it's also education friendly. It aligns with training programs on listening and teamwork and conflict resolution because it does see skills as things that we can grow. However, there are some criticisms of this approach, and one is that it is too broad. It includes elements like personality and motivation that can be seen as beyond leadership. It has a low predictive value, meaning that it doesn't clearly explain how the skills can cause success. So what are the mechanisms behind using those skills that allow us to be successful? There's a little bit of trait-like overlap in that it claims to be skills-based, but it does include some of those trait-like attributes, including our cognitive abilities. It's also context bound. So this model was based on military studies, so it may not as easily be generalizable to other industries. With the skills model, skills are seen as learnable capabilities based on knowledge and abilities. And Katz's 3 skills model argues that leaders have 3 skills: technical skills, which are based on things and being able to do tasks; human skills, which are based on people and our ability to interact with others; and conceptual skills, which are based on ideas and our ability to critically think. The skills model from Mumford and colleagues emphasizes that we all have attributes that influence our competencies as a leader, and those competencies influence our leadership outcomes, and those things are together influenced by our different career experiences and our environmental influences. Remember, those attributes are our general and crystallized cognitive ability, motivation, and personality. Those things influence our competencies, including problem-solving skills, social judgment skills, and knowledge, and those things influence our leadership outcomes, including effective problem-solving and performance. Our career experiences and the heightened responsibility we've had throughout our lifetime influence our attributes and competencies, and then internal and external environmental influences influence our competencies and our leadership outcomes. Thanks to Northouse for offering this textbook chapter on the skills approach to leadership.